going to start with asking again, can you give us a little bit about your background, what you did before you were an agent, what made you want to become and transition into being an agent? Just give us a little bit of your background.
Sure. I actually started in the real estate industry, well, actually even before title, I was a premier banking manager, and I did short form mortgage loans for Wells Fargo, and then got into the title business, and actually did that until right before our wonderful market crashed. When the market crashed, I decided that there was a niche and a need for transaction coordinators. I know a lot of you are probably newer, but at that time, and so those that have been in the business for a while, when the market was booming, most agents had like 2 assistants, and that was the norm. So a lot of them didn't know, I hate to say it, but they didn't know how to do a transaction because they had their assistants doing it. And when the market took a tank, all of that went away. So I decided to open a transaction management company. I was actually the first independent transaction management company on the peninsula. So I worked with over 275 agents. I used to do Carmel Realty's files and some Sotheby's agents, and so that's kind of how I got my start in the business. And I have to tell you, I started that knowing nothing, and I just learned as I went, but I really played it off well. It's different. Looking at the contract from a title perspective and looking at it from a real estate perspective is very different. So I had to basically just roll with the punches as they came.
So what was the trigger when you said, okay, I'm done with transaction management, I'm going to go to I want to be a real estate agent, I want to transition to sales? What triggered you to want to make that jump?
So I did get my license while I was still doing TC work, but I wasn't utilizing it as a realtor. And it got to the point where I was having agents calling me and texting me every hour. There was 0 boundaries. And I finally was like, okay, I just can't do this anymore, and I just need to make a change. I was starting not to love what I was doing. So that when that happens, you have to either make a change to do something you love to do, and I decided that it was my time to venture out and get into the sales side.
Okay, so you go back, we've done with transaction management, you have your license. Where did you start? What was step 1? What was day 1 of Nicole Ushakoff being a real estate agent? What did that look like?
It was scary because my husband hasn't worked for a while because with what he did, he'd injured his back, and then I was the sole provider for a family of 5. I still am the sole provider for a family of 5. But what I decided to do was there was no option. I needed to just hit the ground running. I wasn't going to do it part-time. I needed to just commit, and failure was not an option for me. I had to look at my kids and say there's no way that I can fail at this. I have to just get into the trenches and dig deep and work hard, and that's what I did. So I started doing sales in the end of April in 2016.
Okay. So at that time, April 2016, individual agent, or you on a team?
I was on a team.
Okay, so you were on a team, and so let's just encompass the first month. What were the activities that you started to do, diving deeper on, I gotta hit the ground running, I gotta make it happen, I got 5 mouths to feed. What activities did you start doing where you started seeing some of these results?
I reached out to my sphere first.
Okay.
And then I just started to, anywhere I went, I would leave my business cards, I would talk to people, I would send postcards, I would farm areas. I just did any possible thing that I could to let people know what I was doing. I did a ton of open houses. That's always a great first way to get in there and meet actual people who are looking to buy. Obviously, you're going to get some looky-loos, but you are going to get people who are in the market. So I did a lot of open houses, and I would do even open houses on days that are not the norm, not your Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I would even throw signs out and do it on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. just you never know what's going to happen. And then post up office, work out of the house, it could take that one time for someone to come through, and that's what I did.
Okay, so talk to me a little bit about sphere. You mentioned the word sphere. Define that for us. What is your sphere? What do you constitute a sphere as?
Family, friends, any organizations that I was a part of. My kids are involved in a lot of different extracurricular activities, so I would reach out to families that my children, that there was families that are in that same sphere, and it would just be talking. Like you never know just by bringing up what you do. A lot of the times we're so engrossed in what's happening where we are that we forget to bring up the conversation that, hey, do you know anybody, or are you looking to buy or sell, or do you have a realtor? It could take that one conversation, and that's just what I did. I would just talk to everybody wherever I was.
Okay, so within that sphere, it sounds like everybody that you came into contact was considered sphere. I heard you mention family, friends, and then, I put that on this side of the spectrum, and then over here, just someone I bumped into in the grocery store, and everything in between. Did you categorize these people or these groups? Did you approach them differently in how you communicated with them? Or did you just approach everybody the same, that just anyone I came into contact with?
I think it's different. Yes, there's different ways of communicating. I know sometimes it's uncomfortable whenever you're talking with family or close friends. Isn't that strange? It's like you feel like you don't want to say that to them, but you'll go talk to the stranger. And a lot of people, they get a deterrent of talking because it's personal, and you're talking about people's finances. That was an obstacle for me a little bit, I have to be honest, but I did just still go out of my way, and there was a different approach to it. It was, I know you've worked with so-and-so in the past, but I just wanted to let you know that this is what I'm doing now, and I'm breaking off and doing it full time. So I would approach it a little bit more soft, not like you're doing a sales call.
Okay.
But I mean, it's just that I think was my biggest challenge, is feeling like comfortable enough to come out and talk to family that you're close with or friends without feeling like you're jabbing into their personal business.
Mm-hmm. So fast forward to today, almost April 2019, 3 years later, do you find that you can have that conversation a lot easier? Mm-hmm. And do you have that conversation?
I do. Okay.
So what do you attribute that to? Why is it easier now?
I think as you can become more comfortable and confident in what your abilities are within the industry and knowing what your capabilities are, you feel more confident and comfortable asking for that business. When you're newer, you're afraid of not just getting into their personal financial business, but you're afraid of those are the people you're afraid to let down, right? You never want anything to go wrong or go bad, because that is your family, that is your friends. As you become more experienced, I think there's a confidence level that definitely increases.
So 2019 Nicole having a conversation with 2016 Nicole, brand new agent, nervous, doesn't want to, because I look at family and close friends, I categorize those as your A contacts. Like, they're going to use you no matter what, right? So it's interesting to hear you say that it was difficult for you to approach that group of people because you didn't know how to converse with them properly or convey to them the right way of what you were trying to say. So what would 2019 Nicole say to 2016 Nicole on how to effectively do that? For the new agents in the room, because I look at it like, hey, that's where your business is going to most likely come from first if there's a referral or something. Mm-hmm. How can they communicate effectively and confidently, like you're saying you have the ability to do now, that you didn't have then?
I would say get out of your own head, because that's really what it was. I was in my own head. I was doubting myself because I didn't want to disappoint somebody. When in actuality, I mean, it wouldn't have been a disappointment. You're going to go above and beyond no matter what, but even add an extra ingredient whenever it's somebody that you actually really truly care about.
Gotcha. So back to something you said, so when you first started the business, I heard open houses, passed out business cards, called your sphere, talked to anybody you came in contact with about real estate, let them know that you're in the industry. Did I miss anything in
Farming. I did farming.
So tell me about that.
I picked a couple of target areas and just sent out handwritten note cards, as well as letters. So I would follow up with letters, just giving them updates about the market. And then postcards whenever I would have a listing or anything that was happening. At the time I was on a team, so anything with marketing, new listings or information sold, that would be included as well.
Okay. So open houses, cards and letters, talking to anyone you came in contact with, passing out business cards, calling your sphere. Would you recommend to do those activities to yourself again, going back to when you first started in the industry, and why? I'm putting you on the spot. I think I know why you should do that, and why new agents should do that. But I'm just curious your perspective of why those are good activities.
Well, they're good because it's getting your face and your name out there. And I think that when there's consistency as well, and when that person that you come into contact with does decide or does have a conversation maybe at a time that you're not around, and they have somebody that's looking to buy or sell and invest, if you're consistently doing that and that's the name that they're seeing, they're going to think of you first. So I think it's just the consistency is the big thing, and just it helps to have a familiarity of, oh, this is Nicole. Oh, this is Pete. Oh, I keep getting postcards from this person. Oh, I keep getting their business card and a note card from this person, and it's top of the mind.
Right. So mind share, and I totally agree with that. So where I was going with it, and why I would say those are good activities, would be, what did that cost you, dollar-wise?
Some stamps, some writer's cramp.
And how many people could you reach, and how quickly could you reach
You can
them?
reach them really quickly. I mean, if you really, I would keep to, there were 2 solid areas, and I would do 200 in each one. So I mean, if you're doing your postcards, if you're doing your even your handwritten notes cards, if you're doing like 10 a day, it's pretty easy to get. You can get through them fairly quickly. Sometimes I would do more. It just really would depend. And then you have your postcards. I want to say it's like for 200 postcards was about $167 and change. So I mean, it's really not that much of an investment.
So it sounds like the biggest investment that you made in that process with all those activities was effort, right? It sounds like you put forth the effort consistently and worked really hard. I mean, that's hard work, right? Sitting down and writing 200 note cards, 100 note cards, making sure that you're top of mind of other people, making the phone calls. But again, monetarily, that's not very expensive. Would you agree with that?
Not at all. It's just more of the time, taking the time to do it.
Effort, love it. Okay, so here we are today. $30 million producer last year. Incredible, right? 3 years to go from doing files to kicking everyone's butt. Tell me about your daily routine now. Tell me about your business now.
Well, let's see. So, I mean, I still do a lot of the same stuff. I'm doing handwritten note cards right now, as that's what I was doing before I was coming in. And farming, there's been a shift. I have to be honest, I haven't been as consistent with my mailers or my consistent farm areas, but that's something I have on my list to get back on the grind with. But definitely those postcards, calling the surrounding neighborhoods where if you have a listing or if you just sold. I just sold a property and I've been calling the neighbors and even sending note cards for those I can't get in touch with just sending them a note card saying, just wanted to share the information. I sold a house in your neighborhood, and it was actually a historical, there was only 3 properties in a matter of 2 years that sold in that price point in the last year and a half. So I put that in there, but I kind of left where there's a teaser so that it gives them a reason to call back. So you just say, if you'd like more information on the selling price or any information like that, or like a market value assessment for your property, feel free to give me a call. So I've been doing that to the surrounding properties that I've sold recently over the last few months.
So you're reaching out with success stories, right? Letting people know that you're in business. How are those calls and note cards and those touches, if you will, how are they received by the people? Are they irritated that you're calling them? Are they happy to receive that information? What's give the people kind of a feedback on what the dialogue is like when you make
You'll get hung up on. You will. There's going to always be a select few that will just be irritated that someone's calling them. But I will say that the majority, even if they're not looking to buy or sell or anything, they're really receptive and they've been pleasant. And it's, I don't ever want to make them feel like I'm a solicitor, even though we really are. You don't want to be one of those annoying telemarketers, but it's just getting that conversation. And then I will always, if I have that conversation with them, I will always follow up with that note card and say, thank you for taking the time to speak with me. Because then you're putting your business card in there, and now they're putting a face to the person that they spoke with. We always send out just sold postcards, so then they're gonna get it again with our information. So it's just kind of keeping that consistency going.
What's your follow-up routine with someone that you have a good conversation with? What's your next move? That's a question I get asked all the time. What do I do next? I just had a good conversation. Now what?
I put them on the 30 day on our database. So we'll follow up again with them in 30 days and just say, ask them if they received the information. If we mail something to them, did they get the information? Ask them if they got the business card. And just consistently follow up with them. Even ask for their email address so we can set them up on our market reports. I think that's the biggest thing I have to say for me when I started out, even with buyers. If they say I'm not buying for a year or 2 years, that never deterred me. I would call or follow up with them regularly. That was just a constant. And there's people that I was working with when I first started that just recently purchased maybe 6 months ago. But because I was the one agent that kept following up with them, what happens a lot of the times is agents will meet somebody at an open house or speak with get a buyer lead. And when the person says that they're not gonna buy for the next year or year and a half, they drop them because they want that immediate gratification of, I want somebody who's gonna buy right now. And I can tell you, if you put the time in and you're constantly doing a follow-up, it will pay off in the end, trust me. It really, truly will. And it's just simple phone calls, simple emails. And you also never know if their timelines change. So somebody who can say that they're not doing it for 2 years, that can switch very, very easily. It can shorten. They may have a change of plans. It may turn into 6 months. It may, So it's always good to just be their point of contact. Share information of value. Even if you know that they're not buying, hey, just want to let you know where the market is. I know you're looking in this area of Pacific Grove. Wanted you to see that these new properties hit the market so you know what's available at this time. And they're very appreciative of it.
Craig Rieger had a great script for that. He had the exact same attitude. And when he would call, he would say, I know at the open house you said you weren't going to buy for a year, and that's June of 2021. But sometimes people's circumstances change, and I just wanted I was thinking about you, and if that's changed, just wanted to get a quick update.
Yeah, I have one like that right now. I met at my Benito open house. That house is sold a few months back. And they kept saying that they're not looking to buy for another year and a half. And I just kept following up with them and sending them properties in the areas that they selected and just checking in with them. And now they sent me an email saying, thanks so much for the information. I think we're gonna come in the next month or two. We'd love to meet up with you to go look at properties. We might buy and have it rented out and then have it here when we do decide to retire. So I mean, that's just because, and they went to multiple open houses, so you know they met
Right.
a lot of agents. But because it's been a constant follow-up, that's, you know, it's the top of the mind, so.
It's awesome. So, you just said it, I was gonna ask you next, open houses. Do you still do them? Why? Talk to me about your open house routine, what you do, and then also tell me about your mental expectation. You were touching on that sooner, you know, people, I feel like there's this false premise that someone's gonna walk in and just say, oh, I'm gonna buy a house right now, like, congratulations, you know?
Very rarely does that happen.
So how do you prepare yourself mentally for an open house? What's your self-talk? What's your internal dialogue about what you're trying to accomplish at that open house?
Well, I mean, you're of course there to, why are we all there for open houses? We're there to pick up clients, either people who are looking to buy or neighbors who might be looking to sell in that neighborhood. So I really do go there, you know, you have to go with a purpose, not just to sit there and pass out flyers, because that really gets nowhere. I won't even let anybody walk through or give them a flyer until they've signed in. So we use an app that you can actually, and it captures their name, their email, and their phone number. And then that gives us an opportunity to follow. It also asks them if they're working with an agent, and then I'm able to follow up with them to ask their feedback on the property. Did they like the property? What were the pros and cons? And that's a good way to get back in touch with them. But you know, back to your question, I like to go there with purpose. You know, what are you there to? What is your plan to walk away from it? You know, are you there to just how many clients do you want to capture from that 2-3 hours that you're sitting at that open house? I bring a list of area properties that are surrounding, that are for sale, because what if they walk in and it's not a fit? But obviously they're looking in that specific area. So on the MLS, you can print it out, you can have your information on it, and I also will attach my business card. So even if they do look at it, I mean, if they keep that and they circle a house, it's gonna have your information on the top of it, your contact information, and a lot of people love that. They love that that I was able to make it convenient for them, and they're able to have every property in that specific area on one list. And then what I'll usually say is if they are interested in seeing any of those properties, I'd be happy to show them after the open house or schedule another day, because of course a lot of them may not be something you can go to right away. You have to make appointments for. But I'll bring that, and I'll bring a CMA for the property that I'm doing an open house for, just so that they can see the comparables of what has sold in the area to the property that is on the market. So if you have somebody who's more interested in that specific property, you have more information. So just giving them that additional information that's helpful, then they appreciate it. They're seeing that you're going out of your way to give them valuable insight.
So, considering I might have a little insight to how we do open houses and the expectation, would you say that not only a list of other properties, but most importantly vacant properties, right? Because then that way you can say, hey, I'm done here in an hour. I know I can go to these 3 homes because they're vacant, and I can show them to you right now. Because we get a lot of buyers that are not from the area, right? So it could be a mistake saying, oh, hey, this one's occupied, let's go see it another time, but you might not get that other time.
Yes.
So it's important to have that vacant property list that's accessible right then and there, because the consumer wants instant, right? Mm-hmm. How do you feel that helps you? Does it help you to build a dialogue with that person that walks into the open house when you're not trying to sell them that property. How does that help you build rapport with the potential future client or a potential lead? Do you feel like they open up more to you when you're not jamming that property down their throat and you're actually giving them other options? Tell me about that.
But I usually I'll ask them first what they're looking for. If they come through, you start to get to know their vibe. And I mean, I have to say I'm usually pretty good about reading body language with people. And I think that's just something that comes with experience and getting to know the little quirks of how people act when they like and they don't like something. And then whenever it can strike up a conversation of, are you looking only in Pacific Grove? Or are you looking only in Carmel? Tell me a little bit more about what you're looking for. Let them answer that question, and that will give you more insight on what they want, what their needs are, so you're not shoving something down their throat that doesn't even fit. You know, if they're saying, oh, I want contemporary, and you're trying to sell them this Mediterranean house down the street, I mean, they obviously are going to be like, I'm out of here because this person's not listening to what I'm saying. So I really try to ask the questions first and make sure that the information I'm providing is of value to them. And I think that definitely establishes the rapport, because they know that you're listening.
So to summarize, it sounds like when you go to an open house, you're prepared. You're coming with information of the neighborhood, you're there early, you're ready to go, you're knowledgeable, and it sounds like your goal for that day, for that open house, is to not unrealistically, I'm selling a house today. It's to grab as many contacts as possible. And the third thing it sounded like that you said that's really important in how you can get that information is by listening. When you listen, you hear the true objections, the true wants and needs, and you can play off of those things so that you can build rapport. Is that fair? Mm-hmm. Cool, thank you for sharing that. So, what are some other, let me ask you this, what are activities that can hurt you? What are things that you found from 2016 Nicole to 2019 Nicole that eat up your time, that are a waste of your time, that get you away from generating business and converting business to sales? What are some of those activities that you steer away from?
Overcommitting myself to a lot of other things.
Tell me, what are some of the other things?
I've been guilty of always being a yes person, so I'm always wanting to help everybody, and it would get to a point where the day would be done because I was too busy trying to help on all of these different committees and all of these different, activities for my kids' schools, and then that's just what happens. If they see that somebody's always the yes person, then they're the first person to go to. So I was doing a lot of that, and I still love it, but I have had to, and I still do it. I just have to be a little bit more selective of what I'm going to do and not try to commit to everything, because then it just leaves no time for building my business.
Not off the hook. What are those things? Tell me things that you do or that you used to do that I'll frame it this way. Maybe this will help guide you. That are beneath your pay grade, that are in the industry, that are time sucks, that you could easily find yourself doing that you shouldn't be doing.
Oh, Peter.
What about transaction coordination? You stop doing that, right?
So yes, I will. I'll segue into that. Good one, thank you. So no, he really has taught me. It's very difficult to go from being super engrossed in the whole transaction, because that's what I was used to doing, and being super involved in the transaction. And Pete has really taught me to have trust in the process of what our team does, and why we have such an amazing support system within our team. Because it should eliminate me having to be doing those little, like going and
Picking up keys,
opening up for inspectors and all of the things that take time. I can now utilize that time for more business development and getting more clients and doing more follow-ups and getting more appointments to help keep feeding that machine.
Awesome. That's kind of what I was looking for. But it's important.
It's difficult though, because
Sure.
what I came from, I would be so in the know and everything, and I don't want to say that in the sense that I don't want anyone to think that it's not, you shouldn't know what's going on with your transaction, because you should, but you should trust whoever is handling your transaction. If you have a transaction coordinator or an assistant or your support like that, you should trust them to do, so that you're not having to feel like you have to micromanage it. And right now we have such a great system and amazing team that it's easier for me to let go. Very hard from the beginning. I got many lectures.
You did. But let's talk about how that's helped your business, right? So I preach about knowing your numbers, right? Good, bad, or ugly, you have to know your numbers. You can't run away from them. If you want to look at your numbers when things are going great, and then you don't when they're going poorly. You have to know your numbers inside and out. So to summarize what we were talking about earlier, I would say the word leverage, right? You have leverage. And if you're an individual agent, you have leverage. You can hire out a transaction coordinator, an assistant, whatever. But leverage is key, because that allows you to focus on generating more deals, right? So how many transactions did you do in 2019?
30.
30 deals. And what was your average price point of those deals?
About $9.25.
Okay, so 9.25. So the year before that, 2018, what was your average price point approximately?
$7.75.
Okay, so you've added $150,000 per deal, and how many transactions did you do approximately the year before?
I did 25.
25 deals. So you've done 5 more deals, and you've had an average price point of, we said 9.25, right? So that alone is 4.6 million in volume. And then on top of that, you've added $150,000 per deal times the 25 is 375. So 4.6 plus 375 puts us at 8.3 million, right? 2.5%, $210,000 in GCI added from last year from doing more transactions at a higher price point. So do you honestly think that leveraging and outsourcing some of those activities that can be pitfalls have helped increase your business, or is it something else that has increased your business, or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination.
Tell me about it.
Oh, God. So I would definitely say that because I have been able to free up my time more, that has definitely made a difference. But I also think the environment change for me was huge. I'm going to toot your horn a little bit.
Leave me out of this.
No, I'm going to toot your horn because, he's an amazing leader and he's super supportive of everyone on his team. He wants to see everyone succeed, and it's so refreshing to be in an environment where there's just nonstop support from everybody, but it comes from him because he truly wants to see everyone succeed. It's not for selfish reasons. It's completely because it's what that drives him. But he also won't let me off the hook either. So if he sees me slacking or doubting myself, he will kick me right from the behind and say, no, that's not okay. Like, you're gonna do it. Like, don't ever doubt yourself. You can do this. So thank you, because that is a huge part of my success. I truly feel is being in a very positive and a very driven. It's great to be in the presence of someone who really, really has that drive, because it just makes me want to work harder.
Well, that's very nice. So, transitioning into...
I made him uncomfortable!
Very sweet, thank you. So let me ask you, I think this is a really cool thing, because this is something that I do push upon our team and our agents to do, and that's, you talk about be successful, and my definition of success is a transaction, right? Like, I don't really care if it's a $100,000 trailer or a $10 million estate. That property you were talking about before, that was a record breaker, whatnot, I think you were talking about the one that you just sold in the Highlands. So what did that property sell for?
$5.2 million.
$5.2 million. She represented the buyer the first time, so did such a great job, an exceptional job. They came back to her to list the property. Tough market to sell in, super tough. Crushed it, $5.2 million, incredible job. I might add 6% on the commission, by the way, which is incredible at that price point. That tells you a lot about the service that she provides. What's the contract price of the deal that you just put in escrow the other day?
$360,000.
And it's a condo in Monterey, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to share that with everybody, because that's a real testament to what we believe in, but also someone buying into the process and being transactional, because every deal counts. It counts, absolutely. And I just wanted to applaud you for that, because I think that's what makes you exceptional, is that you're not afraid to, any deal is a deal, and you treat the customer and the client with the same level of service all the way across the board. So now, kind of going back to some other deals that you've done and how it can work inversely, that Del Mesa condo you sold was what price point? 600?
600.
Okay, 600,000. And what's the listing appointment that you're going to be going on for that buyer, and where is that property?
In Monterey, and it's probably about a $4.9 million listing.
Wow. And did you have any notion of that prior going into that deal, or did you just say, hey, this is someone that needs to buy a condo in Del Mesa for $500,000-$600,000, and I'm just going to provide them great service?
That was a referral from a Sphere. So it was, she reached out, they wanted to buy a condo in Del Mesa. They'd always used a particular agent in this area, but for whatever, he didn't, there's personal issues going on with the family, so they didn't want them to know. And so she reached out to me saying, my boss needs to buy this condo. And then as we started to have a conversation, I found out that they have a house, an 8,200 square foot house in Monterey that they are going to be selling, that they felt obligated to use their other agent that they've used. And me not wanting to be super pushy, I kind of just thought, okay, well, they've already said that they are probably going to use this person. I don't want to be pushy and, turn off from them, because we had a really great experience on their purchase. And then I actually sat down with you, and you said absolutely unacceptable.
I might have committed a crime. I might have hit you. I was like, what are you doing?
Absolutely unacceptable. But there was a little bit more words that I just will not say since we're live streamed. And again, gave me the boot. So I was like, ugh, okay, fine, I'm gonna go call them. And I called, and that's when they said, you know what? He likes that idea of getting somebody else in there and sitting down and talking with you guys. So that's where that came from, is another swift kick in the butt by Pete saying, go call them. And I called them, and look what happened. Again, it was, I still get in my own head.
Sure.
So So just, I have to, that's one of my challenges, but that's what he's here for, is to keep me on my toes.
So what was, this is a good segue into the next thing I want to talk to you about, because this is an area where I think you have room to grow. We all have room to grow in this area, but what was the script? What was the main line of when I said, you were like, what do I say? Do you remember what I coached you on what to say? You kind of just touched on it. If not, I can say it out loud. Okay, go ahead.
No, you said ask for the appointment. Just ask to sit down with them 30 minutes. That's all we need.
Right.
To sit down for the appointment, to give us the opportunity to let them know how we do things differently and how we can sell their home.
And so I'll elaborate even further. It was something along the lines, this is a script that I like to use a lot. Is it ridiculous to ask yourself to sit down and get a second opinion on a $5 million asset?
Wow.
How do you answer that question? Because if you say yes, you're an idiot. It's a $5 million piece of property. You really can't say no. And so we talked about this too. We work a lot with scripts and refining our sales skills. So one of them is the power of no, is actually getting people to say no and using it as leverage to say yes. So when you frame it that way, is it ridiculous to ask yourself to sit down with another person to get another opinion on a $5 million asset? The response is no. Well, no, that's not ridiculous to ask. Do you think you owe it to yourself to sit down and get another opinion on such a valuable asset? Yes, I do. Now you got to go win an appointment. Now you got to compete, right? But the power of no, right? So this is what we talked about. So this segues into my next question on here. Do you use scripts? Do you practice scripts? Yes, no, why not, maybe?
No, I just steal from your brain.
So do you think scripts are valid, and do you think scripts have value?
I do think they have value. I think you just have a better memory to memorize them, because that's where, I have to write things down. But I mean, they definitely are, because there's different ways of phrasing. You can phrase the same thing 2 different ways and get 2 different responses, and it's just how you say it.
Exactly. So do you think that's something that, I'm not trying to wheeze on your gig, but I remember when I started, I was like, hey, I thought scripts were awful, because I think and recollect when people call me and they're trash on the phone, they're bad, and it's just like, I can't hang up fast enough. And then I saw someone execute scripts. Who was it? It was Jeff Quinton. He's a KW agent out of New Jersey, big team, and it's on YouTube. It's like an hour-long video of Real Geeks was the website company that interviewed him, and they showed live footage of him making calls, sales calls. And I started watching people make sales calls, really good, people that understood scripts make sales calls, and I saw the power that a script can have if it was executed properly. And I also saw how you could overcome any single objection within the process if you were prepared. So we talk about predicting objections, right? When you know what they're going to say, what they're going to object to, and you know what's coming, you can hurdle it very easily, like the dialogue with the Monterey thing. So you do think scripts have value? You got to get better at them. You got to practice.
I do. Yeah, I definitely do.
How do you get better using scripts?
You shadow with somebody, or you just role play, because that's, if you're doing it constantly and role playing, then it starts to be more fluid when you're talking, and you're not sounding like you're reading something on a piece of paper.
So going back to the beginning of this interview, and you talk about 2016, Nicole, new agent, didn't want to talk to people, nervous, right? Would you say that if you practiced scripts and you understood scripts and you had them in your repertoire, that would potentially give you a confidence?
For sure. I think it would work definitely for everybody. You
Right.
have to, you can never stop learning. That's the one thing that I've always said, is no matter how many years I've been in this industry, and I can sleep and tell you what part of the contract is what, and in my, on the back of my hand, but things are always changing, and there's always new competition, so you always have to stay on your game and continue to learn or refresh your skills, and scripts are definitely something that everyone can benefit from.
Awesome.
When do you practice them?
What do you mean?
When do you practice your scripts?
Whenever you fit them in your schedule, whenever you
Well, no,
do
when do you-
me? That's what we were just talking about. I have to start practicing them more.
So,
We've talked about this. We talked about doing this with our team and having like a power 30-minute role play where we do practice scripts, because I think it just would benefit everybody.
what about the objection book that I talk about? Remember how I talk about objection books? Can you tell them kind of what that is and purpose of it and how you can actually use failures to become better?
Well, you always talk about how some of you say it better than I do though, so why don't you just tell them?
No, I'm just saying, so let's start with this. What is the objection book? What is that? When I tell all you guys, get a 3-ring binder, and when you're on the phone or you're with a client or you're talking to a lead or whatever it is, and we've all had it, and you get that objection where you go,
Stumps you.
what do we do? What's the
Write it
objection
down
book
so
for,
that you
right?
can, write it down so that you can figure it out so that the next time it's not, you're able to answer it quickly and overcome it. So
That's that prediction, right? So, and then do you remember what else I kind of talk about and preach about with that objection book? What you'll start to see when you start
they're
writing
not
them down?
really objections,
They're what?
they're complaints.
Right? 99% of objections are just complaints. They're really not objections. And then also in the grouping, do you remember what I talked about with that too? As far as you're going to actually start to see that most of the objections are going to start lumping together. You're going to see the same 5, 4,
Right.
6 objections over and over and over again. So for me, and this is good that we're talking about this, but that's why, scripts are huge, because when you can hurdle those and when you really realize, geez, it's only the same 5 answers or the same 4 answers I hear over and over again, it's going to give you that confidence to predict them and have the answer ready to go. So that's just another good thing that I think we go through. That's awesome. So segueing into the team now. So why do you work with a team? What do you think? I know we talked about earlier, we talked about leverage, we talked about atmosphere and energy and positivity and all that stuff. What are some other reasons why you work with a team and why you think they help the team makes you successful?
I think it's just great because you think about it. If you are, not that there's anything wrong with single agent, but I think it gives you the opportunity to have more time to generate more business, and then you have a support system to cover your open houses, to be able to, it's difficult. I don't know how many single agents here have had more than maybe 4 listings at a time. No? Well, why?
It's hard. It's hard.
Here, my point of this is if you have 4 listings, right? And every one of those sellers wants you to do open houses every weekend, or they have this expectation that they need you there. How is one person going to cover all of that to make your client happy, feel that they're getting the service that they are paying for? Right now, I know sometimes it's best to set those expectations with your sellers. However, you're one person. So with our team, it really gives us the opportunity to go out there and get the business, but also know that it's covered. You have people that you trust to cover your properties. We feed off of each other. I just think it's a great, you have a good core group of people that you can bounce ideas off of, and it's like a family. So we just really, we want to see each other succeed, and it's a great camaraderie.
So that's all good stuff. And so taking that and kind of phrasing that into a dialogue that you would have with a client, either a buyer or a seller, how do you take that and how do you convey that to them that they're getting a better service working with a team, and how a team can be advantageous? Because there's that dialogue, right? The single agent's going to go into that appointment and say, oh, teams are too busy and this hand doesn't know what the other hand's doing, and but me being personal, I'm going to be here. And then you got the team saying, wait a minute, we got a staff that's going to support you 24/7, and we can hold your house open every weekend. How do you leverage the team to get business, and how do you convey that to the client of why it's an advantage? And how it's an
I
advantage?
think, when you put it into perspective that they have 8 people, right? I mean, you can be their direct point of contact. They're still your client, you're the main point of contact, but they're basically getting 8 people for the price of 1. And they're always going to have someone to talk to, and there's always going to be coverage. I mean, I think it's what you said. I mean, are you asking me to give you the script of what I say?
When you're sitting down with a seller, how are you pitching that the team's an advantage? What are the things that you're telling them that it's better? If you were in a competition with a listing appointment with a single agent, and I'm the seller saying, hey, Nicole, you know what? I just met with so-and-so, and they said teams suck, right? And not to work with a team. What's your rebuttal to that?
Well, my rebuttal would be that, here's Pete, why don't you ask him?
Cigarette practice.
What? I was thinking all these questions.
No, but no, it's fair. We asked.
But honestly, it's
good.
It's the nice thing is that we talk about what we do as a group. Why are we different? What separates us? How were we able to accomplish being the top unit producing agents in the Monterey County? There's obviously a system that's in place that's pretty seamless, and by having that, they're getting tons of support. They're getting, I don't know, Pete.
You're doing great. We'll work on it.
Yeah,
Simple answer is we hire people that are better than us in roles that we're not good at, right? I mean, that's the truth. I'm not great at doing accounting and bookkeeping and organization and all that. No, I'm not. Natalie's a rock star.
Yes, she is.
And Gina does all the listing stuff, sets up everything. So you're right. I mean, you've touched on it. We have support, and other teams have support that, there's availability. There's more than just one contact point. And I think that's the advantage.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it truly is. And then being able to, they're feeling like they just have,
right.
Oh my gosh, I have all these people, and
right. No, it's good.
love this person.
We've been talking about it. That was a tough question. It was kind of a big question, but we've been talking about it the whole time. You're doing great. Biggest failure. What's the biggest failure you've ever had in the business?
Biggest failure? That's a tough one.
Or most challenging thing. It doesn't have to be necessarily a failure, but most challenging thing you've ever had to encounter in the business.
I would say, so here's the thing that I think is a good lesson. This is a competitive business, right? And there's the negotiation factor from one agent to another. Sometimes there are personalities in this industry that they feel like they have to win, that they come out with their boxing gloves to start. And I think that the one thing that I've always tried to remain is like, no matter what my personal feelings are, or if you feel like the other agent is just completely out of line, trying to keep that balance and not having your own personal feelings involved in that, as hard as it may be, because that doesn't benefit the clients, it doesn't benefit the transaction. And there are many people that come that are just like, I'm gonna beat this person, or oh, that's Nicole, I'm gonna beat her, I'm gonna win this battle of negotiation, or I'm gonna beat Pete because Pete's number one, so I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna go with my boxing glove and I'm gonna punch him right from the get out. And it's like, how does that benefit anybody? I think that is the most challenging. It sounds really, out of all of my transactions, they've all been great. We've had one client who's been a thorn, and that's just because he's a thorn. But all of the other challenges have been more with other agents. So my takeaway is just always remember you can negotiate and you guys can bring a deal together without being nasty. It's not necessary. You don't need to be nasty. You don't need to be like coming with this whole personal vendetta
Taking
of,
all the fun out of it.
why? You like to be the nasty one, Patrick?
No, just
But I think that's
Combative? maybe?
combative. Yeah, I said it really doesn't benefit anybody. And then at the end of the day, how is that helping a buyer and a seller, right? You may get an offer that's such a lowball, almost insulting offer, and just because you personally feel that it's an insulting offer doesn't mean that you bring your own personal. The whole idea is to bring something together, right? To make it work and present it in a way where it's not negative to your client. Or if you're getting a response as a buyer's representative, not bringing it negatively, giving them the options. And a lot of the times, that's, I think, the biggest challenge in this business is not the clients, although you will have some of those that are a little difficult. I think it's the egos in this industry.
Do you have a real life example where you can share and look back on a deal where it was like that, where it was just like, you're doing the best you can, and it's just like taking one on the chin from the first email and the offer sent, and did it get to the finish line? And what techniques did you do or use that maybe calmed the other agent down or got them to, kind of come down a little bit and see eye to eye with you and make the transaction happen?
I had to write a couple of emails out and read them to myself first, because sometimes you want to just get it out there, what you really want to say, but then I had to delete it and start over again. But I had an agent, she was newer in the business, and it's exactly what I said. She came at me with this whole just combative attitude because she wanted to trump me, right? And I thought, this is just not... I'm nice, guys, but let me tell you, I do have a very, very feisty side. So sometimes I have to rein myself in because of what I want to say. But I mean, I had to keep that back and just think about my client. My client really wanted this house, and I responded with facts. And she was just adamant that this house was priced where it needed to be. She's newer, she didn't really know the market, it was overpriced for the area, but my clients really liked this house. So I just provided the facts, I provided the information, but I also set my clients up that, look, if you guys really want this house, we may have to go in at this price and wait for the appraisal to come back. And if the appraisal comes back and it doesn't appraise, then we cross that bridge, but you guys have to be willing to take that chance. But you have to leave that up to your clients to do. And everything on my responses to the agent, she was very combative until the appraisal didn't come back. But I could have gone back to her and said, ha ha ha, I told you so, but I didn't. And I just said, unfortunately, this is where we are. I kept it very, very, very civil, very cordial, and at the end of the transaction, everything was great. But I mean, it was a very interesting transaction. I mean, it was to the point where she got super juvenile and started to say that she had met another client that was working with me that she's now going to work with. It was super juvenile. It was, and I just let it go. And I just said, I'm really sorry that you feel that way and that you're getting into this industry and starting it on that note, because we all need to work. We're all going to work together. We all have to work together in a positive way. So anyway, long story short, it closed and it didn't appraise, but we got it done.
Nice. Last thing here before we go. What gets you motivated every day to go through that, right? Like I explained to my wife, we both joke about who works harder. She's like, she's like, 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, you have no idea. And I'm like, yeah, well, I deal with that same mentality in adults. Imagine, I can forgive my 2-year-old for acting like a 2-year-old, but a 50-year-old is more challenging. So I can relate to you and understand going through situations like that, and it can be a little bit of a head game. What motivates you to keep going? What motivates you to keep doing that and endure some of those situations? And do you remind yourself of that? And kind of what's your routine on a daily basis to get your mindset right of why you're doing this? Because it can be a difficult thing.
It is. It can be draining, and you don't realize how much it drains you until, like, the other day I got home and I was like 6:30 and I'm wanting to fall asleep, which is so not like me. But it does. It can mentally drain you when you don't even realize it. I would probably say my kids. I just know that what I have to do is for my children, to just provide for them, and that's what gets me going in the day to push through. So.
How do you balance that lifestyle? How do you balance being available to your clients all the time?
Oh, it's tough.
And your kids? Just give us a little insight to how you balance the two. Because you're doing 30 million deals, you're doing 30 transactions, more than 2 a month. At any given time, how do you balance that?
It's not easy because I'm a workaholic, so that's always difficult for me to pull away sometimes. And sometimes I have no choice because of my own personal, just my son has health issues, so I have to pull away from that, and I have to just focus 100% on what is going on with my family and my kids. But I do. I mean, I try to take, like, Sundays are kind of my days that I will do open houses on Saturdays, on Fridays, and I will still do some on Sundays, but I try to make sure that I have at least a day that I'm spending, and then when I get home, trying to unplug and do homework with them or help them with whatever extracurricular activities. Like, I don't have there's not an ingredient.
Right.
Because we get calls all the time, and
Right.
you, in this industry, you have to take it while you have it.
Right. Let me frame it up just a little bit differently, maybe to give insight to everyone here, because this is something I'm the same way and wired like you are. What happens if you don't respond to your clients on a Sunday, or if you don't get back to them if you're at a kid's game or dance recital or whatever, and the call comes in and you don't answer and it goes to voicemail and you get back to them an hour later? What happens? Have you ever experienced consequences from that?
I don't know, because I've never done that.
What I'm trying to say is, it's okay if you don't answer the phone. No, but I think
I'm like,
that's true.
I can't say that because I'll start having an anxiety attack.
Well,
That's just what happened. I don't know. I'm trying. Okay, I'm working on it.
Well, I think the point I'm trying to make is that it's okay that if you take a Sunday, or it's okay that if you spend some time with your kids, it's okay that if you put the phone down or unplug for a few hours, that the client's still going to be there. That you have to remind them that you're a human being sometimes, because sometimes, people, it's the first transaction for them in the year, and it's the 40th for you, and you just have to remind people sometimes that you are a human and you have a family and you need a few moments to yourself. So, well, I think I speak for everybody when I say thank you very much.
Yeah.